Hello, welcome to a digital plein airing session with Esther Wu. I will be showing my pipeline and process of doing a digital slash virtual plein airing painting that I did. I like doing this because these are studies to kind of help me practice brushwork and painting, and amongst other things, study composition. And also, it's something fun. Um, what I do is I just hop on Google Maps and just drop myself in a location I want to paint, much like in real life if you decide to go plein airing. But in this case, I'm using maps to find something that inspires me. Um, and this is just to kind of show how I would do a plein air study. Right now, I'm thinking about the big shapes, values, and figuring out if I want it to be either a tighter composition or a zoomed in composition. Right now, I am thinking about more of a city block, like showcasing more of the architecture and people. That kind of changes. Maybe like 10 minutes in, but that's kind of the organic nature of doing these studies where you're just like free flowing and figuring out ideas and enjoying the art making process. Um, I'm pretty loose in the beginning, a lot of just like scribbling, a lot of like um, rapid decisions, and uh, laying down shapes. Right now, I know the focal point is going to be the storefront, so I'm just showing that. Um, like I'm tightening it up already because I know that's not gonna change, but I still haven't really set up on the shot I want. And for colors, it's daytime, so it's not anything particularly um, special. I mean, also, like going on uh, virtual city streets. It's not like there's a wide array of uh, lighting setups to study from. I think they mostly take pictures during the day. Sometimes you get interesting time capsule captures of like overcast, or someone's individual like 360 video or photo of like the street at night. But I just like go on the street. I just dropped a little person on the street and just kind of peruse and see um, like what catches my eye. Um, right now, I'm just finessing the like shapes and the architecture. So there's gonna be a lot of that. It's gonna be lasso and figuring out the edges and where they lie, and making sure things go into perspective. There is a perspective grid underneath here. It's just it's oh, I haven't made it yet, but there is going to be one laid down just so I can get the architecture right. Um, at a certain point, I do recommend making a perspective grid or getting a brush to lay it in so that you will not have to kind of like make it up. That can only go so far. When it comes to city scenes, it will definitely help to lay down a grid. But yeah, right now I'm kind of making sure that everything falls into place. As you can now probably see the grid. Um, there's really not much to go over. This is all like once I kind of set up the scene, it's just like polishing. after that, I've entered step 2 of the meme of drawing the owl. Um, like now it's like, oh, I gotta paint in the windows, paint in the structures, and I'm still just thinking about the shapes, and I'm still thinking about like um the different like the big shapes that kind of pop out, like for instance that sign. And as you can see, for some reason I could not decide this the borders of that sign. But as far as kind of like designing and painting, I've kind of established everything in the very beginning. Now it's just adding in all the, not the little details, but like the smaller details, and then going into the more finite details later on. Uh, right there, even though like those are pretty minute, like the shadows being casted by the decorative elements, I still kind of wanted to put them in there. There's really not much else to this step. This is like the ugly phase of the painting where it's like noodling in all the things that I kind of see. And I'm just working on one side at a time. So right now I'm just populating the right side, and then moving on to the left side in a bit. But the majority of this video is just going to be in this kind of like um, in this kind of step where it's just like placing in all the little things that I see here and there. A lot of the cool kind of architecture elements, even though they're hidden in shadow, I still want to try to capture them in place. Um, like indicate them somehow, because it kind of just adds to the nice, details to the history of the building. Um, this area has always been like a mixture of different, like times and different people. Like that neighborhood really changed throughout my years of being in New York and visiting there. First, it wasn't as uh, populous, and then now there's just like all these signs, um, like new coats of paint and like murals around the buildings, like the giant like uh, red patch of the wall is actually this like big mural of the bakery. Just their logo and some little designs. Um, and of course, like even when it comes to like signs, it's like also like a mixture of different languages: Chinese, Italian, etc., etc. And of course, you can't forget the ACs. They're always on the buildings around New York. That and the grill thing that's attached. And this video is obviously fast forwarded. There's a lot that's just adding small details, ledges, and little things here and there, and just like slowly bringing in the believability, but not too much. I don't want to, I'm still keeping this rather simplified, because like a full on like very realistic painting is one, very long to do, and two, kind of isn't what I'm going for right now. I want to just study and have fun and design the street a little bit, kind of like really show off what matters, at least the bigger things. So like the AC units, edges, and like bevels and the architecture. Like even though there's a lot of details in the window panels and, you know, through reflections and whatnot. I'm not gonna literally paint in the reflection. This is still just like a small study. The total time was over 2 hours though, so I don't know if that's a small study for some people. But yeah, you know, as I'm painting this, I'm also thinking about trying to keep my brushstrokes simplified and minimal. That does mean like a lot of teeny strokes once you get into this phase. It's just my eye kind of goes around and paints around the composition. I think that's a habit that comes from plein air painting in life, where if you're painting on some wet on wet, you kind of just move around waiting for the paint to dry. I know this is like digital painting, but I really do feel like that habit just carries over. Um, yeah, and it's kind of silly to think about that it does carry over, but it does. But yeah, there's a few minutes left of this video. Really, all of it now is just polishing it up just a little bit, adding the like scattered texture on the floor, and the last bit will be uh, kind of cinching in all the details by adding in the text and teeny highlights. Uh, Definitely one of my favorite things to do is as I'm painting everything, it's like, oh yeah, I gotta like make sure I get the form right and paint in, you know, like set up my painting for, you know, this moment where I'm gonna start adding the teeny details of like the lettering and the like the teeny crevice shadows. Like I look forward to that a lot. Um, and even though it's not very uh, clean, it's still something I love scribbling in. Kind of adds in like the tiny details of like um, it's kind of like the like if you had gouache and you're like, oh, it's time to take the one, you know, like number one round, pointed round, and start dipping it into like the paint and just like adding the teeny strokes. Um, but yeah, as you can see, even though it's not as accurate, I really do like writing, like lettering, and there's a lot of things that are still left to obscurity. Like I don't touch the sign in the shadow because it's repeated already in the light, and I feel like I've added enough details to viewer to know that that's the same shop front on both sides. Um, but yeah, I also haven't touched the human. um, Even though I am an environment painter, I do like adding figures to my paintings. It's well, this one did come from uh, maps, but it's nice to keep them in. Especially in New York, people are always going someplace, somewhere like with determination. They're just walking down the street with like a motive in mind. And that's something that I feel like is perfect to get, caught on in a painting. Now it's just like she's like they're my finishing touch. But yeah, that's basically about it. That's the final painting. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned.